What is going on, guys? So today I have a bit of an interesting video. I've seen all these videos floating around YouTube of people buying stuff off of Wish, and they're all going crazy, so I figured I'd jump in on the action. I've only seen one person make a video on buying car parts off of Wish, so I thought I would try it as well. So if you don't know what Wish is, it's pretty much this app or website that sells really cheap, crappy Chinese stuff on the internet for like no money. I'm sure you guys know what it is though. The advertisements for it on the internet are crazy, and a lot of times you get advertised for like some really weird stuff, so I don't know what that's about. But I thought I'd look and see what sort of car parts they had on there and see if there was anything that looked sort of interesting and see sort of what it was. So honestly, looking through the car parts section, they have a whole automotive section on their website. There's not a whole lot that actually is more than like headlight bulbs or like tint. But I did find a couple of things that I think are sort of cool and might actually come in handy or, you know, work out. I tried to buy things that hopefully are simple enough that they actually are worth the money, rather than buying things like cheap tint or crappy LED bulbs that I know are gonna be pretty much subpar. I already got the items in the mail. I already opened them up because I got too excited, but they're still in like their main packaging, so let's see what I got from Wish. Here's my first item. It's a fuel pump mount. It's made technically for a Bosch 044, which is like a standard fuel pump. Pretty sure you find them in like stuff like Volvo 240s and stuff. It's a common pump that people use in aftermarket applications. But I believe that my pump should be around the same diameter, and that is something that I need. My fuel pump is just floating around in my front trunk, if you don't watch my channel. So yeah, it came in cheap packaging. Let's see. So it's it seems to be aluminum, powder coated. It seems to be powder coated. It doesn't weigh anything. It feels, I thought it was plastic in the packaging at first. So here it is. I mean, it's decent powder on there. The holes, let's see if I can focus on that. The mounting bracket holes are actually like pretty messy, which is sort of funny. But I mean, it doesn't affect the functionality of it at all, so that's fine, I guess. It comes with a rubber sleeve, which is good, so that the pump isn't against the aluminum. It looks like it should fit for my pump. If it doesn't, I can add some more rubber to the outside or whatever to take up the difference, because there's no way it's bigger than this diameter. So it's sort of interesting. I guess it relies on the flexibility of the aluminum to clamp down the pump. We'll see how that works, but honestly I think this should work out pretty well. This is just a couple bucks, like $5 or something. So I'd say that's probably worth the money. Something like this is tough to break. I mean, it's gonna be mounted and it's like a simple part. So I mean, I guess possibly it could fatigue over time and crack, but I really doubt that'll happen. But we'll mount it up and see how it works. But first impressions are really not bad at all. Manufactured sort of cheaply, but for the money, what do you expect? All right, second item I got was some electrical connectors. It's still in the bag here. So these are like waterproof, just electrical connectors, I guess. You know, sometimes it's nicer to have these style connectors on hand rather than just like spade connectors. So if you have like 5 wires at a junction and you want to be able to connect and disconnect them easily, then you can just use one of these. Look, it was in a plastic package. Now it's in another plastic package. Now it's in a plastic box. That's why our oceans are dying or something. So let's see how they look. These are sort of tricky, you know. This is another item that really only the test of time will tell me how good they are, but let's see how they are just sort of based on first impressions. They smell like cheap Chinese parts. Let me see, let me clip some of these together. Okay, well, you know, I'm pretty sure this style connector is pretty common on GM vehicles from my experience, I think. I might be remembering that incorrectly. and usually whenever I use a style connector, I know for sure it's usually a lot more stiff. So I don't know if that's because there's no wires installed in there, like no actual terminals, these little guys, because, you know, all that's going together is the plastic right now and the rubber seal. But I would guess that it's not due to that, but it's actually due to the fact that this rubber seal is like floppy as heck inside of there. Like, it does not fit inside of the male rubber seal is super loose inside that female terminal. So these really, just from the look of it, are not waterproof. You know, they're probably better than a standard spade terminal like I was talking about before, but they're definitely not fully waterproof like an OEM connector would be. Terminals that come in do interface pretty nicely though. They go in nice and tight and seem to work pretty well. This kit came with like 6-pin, 5-pin, 4, 3, 2, 1. So it's got a little bit of everything, which is sort of cool. These are nice to have laying around. You know, I've got a couple connectors in the car that would actually benefit from these, so I'll put them in and see how they work over time pretty much, but I have a feeling these are a pretty good buy considering these were just a couple of bucks. So the last item I bought off of Wish was actually pretty expensive in terms of Wish products. It was like 50 bucks, but I saw it and I sort of just really wanted it. So for my car, which is this thing right here if you don't follow the channel, it's a sort of race car build, and I wanted a switch panel, and the one I really wanted is the ARC whatever switch panel that everyone is using in their race cars and drift cars nowadays. It's like a little capacitive touch panel with these LED lights, and it looks really nice and it looks awesome, but it is not that cheap. And this has been a really cheap build, and those switch panels, like the small ones, are like 300 bucks. I'm not really willing to drop that right now on the car, and this sort of looked to me like a cheap mini version of that. And if it works pretty well for 50 bucks, I'm gonna be stoked. So let's pop this thing open. This was really the only one that I'm really that excited about because it is something I legitimately need for this car. I need a switch panel. I'm running pretty much switches hanging by wires right now. And I think based on what I've seen online, these are actually not that bad. When you open the box, this is what you see. Here is the actual switch panel itself. So it's got 6 switches on it. These are not buttons. These are capacitive. It's like a capacitive screen. So it's the same style button as you would see on like the screen of an iPhone or really any modern cell phone or tablet that has a glass screen. So when you click them, there's no haptic feedback, but they are backlit with LEDs. So you'll see once it powers on how it works. This thing's got some decent weight to it, surprisingly. You know, it's only those little 6 switches, so there's not too much in there. It's got a VGA cable on the back, that's how it's connected. Yeah, it doesn't feel that cheap. It is all plastic, but it feels fairly decent, actually. I'm pretty impressed. It's got this super long VGA cable, which is just a standard VGA cable. I imagine you could just interchange this with really any VGA cable if you need a longer one or a shorter one. I would be nervous with doing a longer one because I don't know how well the data will transfer on a longer cable. I don't know if it's going to give you any issues or anything, but I imagine a shorter one you could pretty much run without any worries. It's got the cheapest packaging of all time. In here we have got, let's see, some labels, it looks like, for the buttons. So I think these are made for like yachts or something, or like big boats. Which is sort of interesting because all the button labels are sort of like boat related. So you got like autopilot, aerator, anchor light, cabin lights, cockpit lights, GPS, freshwater pump, just a bunch of different stuff. I don't think I'll run any of these because these sort of add like an extra layer of cheapness feeling, and none of these sort of apply to what I'm going to be using it for. So I think I'm just going to run them as is. And it's sort of cool because it just is a lit white button, and they feel fairly nice. They're not actually glass, but they're pretty hard plastic, so close enough. Comes with a supposedly 3M. I don't know if it's actually 3M because it's a Chinese-made product. double-sided piece of tape that is supposed to go on the back of this. So you cut a hole in a panel and use this to apply it to whatever. So I imagine that should work okay. And then in the box, this is the controller portion of it. It's just a plastic box. You got a positive terminal, a negative terminal, ground terminal. Here's the other VGA socket so you can hook it up to the switch. And then you have 1 through 6 terminals, and those are going to be the output. So pretty much you run these to whatever you want to give 12 volts to. And supposedly on the box it says this is rated up to 12 volts DC, 10 amps, or 24 volts DC, 10 amps, which I'm a little bit behind on my electrical engineering. It's been a few years, but I believe that doesn't make any sense because I would think at the lower voltage you could run slightly more amperage. I'll have to double check on that, but that might just be wanky marketing or whatever. So this thing also, weight, I mean it's definitely light, but it doesn't feel that cheap considering all it is a switching mechanism inside of there. I'm tempted to open this thing up. I'm gonna see how easy it is to open it up. I don't wanna break it, so I'm not going to. But if I can get this thing open, I'll open it up to see how janky it is on the inside of here. So it also comes with a little box full of wire connectors. So you got 6 with a male or a female spade connector, and then just a short little 4-inch leader wire with actually a tinned and twisted end, so it makes it real easy to solder. That I was pretty impressed by actually, for such a cheap little Chinese made product, that they would tin the end of them and everything, and even put an insulator on the connector. And then they also gave a positive and a negative wire, same deal, tinned, with a crimped on wire terminal to use for the positive and negative for the entire box itself. I was most excited about this part. I'm going to install this in and see how it works. My only concern with it so far is how responsive those buttons are. You know, if they're really crappy and they're tough to press and everything, I'm going to be pretty disappointed, but if they click on pretty easily, I'm going to be quite the happy camper. So fingers crossed that this thing works out, because it was 50 bucks, which is not that much money, but it is a decent amount of money to just be throwing away in the trash. So fingers crossed that this thing works decent. So I'm in my car. I got the little black box sort of wired in temporarily. I didn't want to wire it in permanently because I didn't know if this thing was going to work or not. So, you know, I didn't want to waste all my time doing that, you know. So once you have the device wired in, which is just a positive 12 volts and a negative just to ground, you can hook up your cables to whatever you want this thing to control to the other side. So right now I have 2 hooked up. I have one going to the ECU for the signal to turn the ECU on. It's just a light little 12 volt signal, very low amperage. And then the other one I'm going straight to the radiator fans, which is not the correct way to do it, by the way. What that should be doing is going to a relay to trigger the radiator fans to turn on. So I'll mention that later though in just a minute. Once you have that all wired up, you take the VGA cable, it plugs into the back here, and as you see, it is backlit with these little LEDs. So in order for me to probably wire this in correctly, eventually what I should do is wire it to my ignition switch. So this doesn't come on until my ignition switch comes on. Otherwise my battery's gonna die because it's gonna sit with these lights on all the time. I have a gang of 6 switches. Let's see how they work. So I don't know if you could see that. The backlight, when I click it, changes to blue, which is pretty cool. You guys see that? And as you can tell, it works actually like amazing. Like it works super good. So it works pretty much as well as like you would expect like a modern like phone screen to work. Like it works perfect. I mean, the second you touch these switches, they turn on like totally flawless. I am super impressed by this. I mean, 50 bucks is expensive for like the Wish app. However, like This thing works great. So I have the second one wired up to the radiator fans, straight to the fans, hot. You can tell it's coming on, it's pretty loud, which by the way, that noise is the fuel pump coming on. It cycles on to prime whenever you turn the ECU on, like turning the key on. So the fan turns on, works great, and I can click it on and off. You know, they just work perfect. So I don't know, I'm pretty stunned that they work this well. You know what I just noticed? This is pretty odd. The digitizer for it is actually accessible from the back of the panel, so be wary of that. For some of these switches, I can actually click them and cycle them from the back, which is sort of funny. I mean, it doesn't really affect functionality, but I just noticed that because I clicked this one on from the back here. So just be aware of that. The back is going to be accessible, but it's really only going to work with like a finger touch. It should not work. Yeah, it's not going to work from a piece of plastic or just metal touching it, because it actually needs the touch of your finger, like the screen of a cell phone. So one thing I did notice, since this thing is rated at 10 amps, I did not know that they did this, but they actually have built into it some sort of circuit protection. So if it goes over a certain amount of amperage load, it will turn itself off. So let me see if I can get it to do it again. Well, of course I can't get it to do it on camera, but earlier it was switching off the fans on its own because I imagine they were pulling too much load, when the proper way to wire it would be not straight from here to the fans, but through a relay. So I will switch that up, put a relay in there. I was just being lazy. So yeah, otherwise it should work, or it will work perfectly fine. Just I apparently found out that it has some sort of circuit overload protection, which is honestly a bonus, so you're not burning up your switches. So it literally takes it doesn't take any pressure, you just touch it, like, you know, like you would hope it would work. I can't believe it works this well. This is so impressive. I'm so excited. This is exactly what I was looking for, but did not want to spend $300 on, so oh my gosh, I'm stoked. This thing is for sure getting mounted right in the middle of my dashboard, and it's gonna look great because it's actually a pretty decent looking product, besides the fact that the middle of it right there says touchscreen panel DC. I don't know why it says that. That makes no sense as to why they would label that on there. That's stupid. But I guess that's a trade-off I get for saving a bunch of money. Yeah, so later I'll go in and install this permanently, but let's end off this video. So, what is the consensus? Are these things any good? I'd say I'm pretty happy with my purchases. The little fuel pump mount, while it is a cheap little aluminum mount, there is not much to it. It's a simple part, so not much to break here, not much to go wrong. We'll see in the long run how it works, but I think that this thing is going to be perfectly fine. And you know, for the money, I'm totally happy with this thing. The connectors, time will tell on these guys. Obviously they interface decently, but the waterproofness is not going to be there as nice as an OEM connector, so you know, take it as you will. Don't use it like you would a factory connector sort of deal. The switch panel, I'm beyond stoked on the switch panel. I can't believe how awesome that thing works. I would totally recommend it again. I guess over time we're gonna see how it lasts in terms of, you know, quality, how the longevity of the part is. I don't know if it's gonna last that long. You know, it is a cheap part. So we will see with time, and only time will tell. Only time will tell, because, you know, it seems to work now, but maybe it'll only last me a week. We will see. Hopefully it lasts a good long time, and then I can feel comfortable recommending it to everyone, because right now I'm super stoked on this thing just because it works well. It looks pretty clean, and it's sort of exactly what I was looking for. So if you guys are new to the channel and you want to see more videos like this, make sure to leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more cool videos on my race car, and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think about all this Wish garbage on YouTube right now that I am contributing to. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I will see you in the next one. Peace out.